Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, where I discover the most interesting facts about weapons, dispel myths, and compare what we see on our screens with real-life examples. CSGO knives have long become a cult for many players, and looking at how our character in the game makes brutal killings with these knives, it is easy to believe that we are dealing with a serious weapon. But is that really the case? Are CSGO knives in real life as dangerous as they seem in the game? In fact, what looks like an incredibly cool knife in Counter-Strike can turn out to be nothing more than a trinket or a very niche tool in reality. And in this video, I've collected 5 examples of those same CS knives that real fighters would never take with them on a mission. Do you want to know why they are not as good weapons as you might think? Then like this video and watch till the end. And the first knife, or more accurately knives on my list, will be the push dagger or the well-known shadow daggers from the game CSGO. In the game, these blades do not differ in attack speed or damage from the default knife, as they are just skins. However, in real life, these knives have slightly different characteristics. By the way, the push dagger was invented and widely used during the gold rush of the 19th century. Its prototype was probably the traditional Eskimo ulu knife used by the indigenous people of Alaska for skinning and other household needs. It is partly similar to the ancient weapon, the katar. There is also information that even the Vikings used a piece of wood clenched in their fist with an arrowhead inserted into it for combat. As for the combat qualities, such blades are usually clenched in the palm, and it turns out that in order to wield such knives, you almost do not need any training, as strikes are made in the same way as in a normal fistfight. However, that's where the advantages end. Although such knives can easily penetrate human flesh, even with the slightest touch, when the blade hits a bone, it starts to spin in the hand and simply falls out. And that's all when it comes to fighting in prepared conditions. And now let's imagine if you have an opponent with a knife in front of you, and in order to become a full-fledged combat unit, you need to get these two knives, grip them correctly, and only then start the fight. And in CS itself, these knives have a fairly meager attack and weapon inspection animation, so shadow daggers rank 5th. The 4th place is taken by the fan favorite knife in CSGO, the Karambit, the knife that most players seem to love. At first glance, it looks pretty awesome with its curved shape and cool designs, but there's more to this knife than meets the eye. The Karambit is not your typical knife. The blade is curved and sharpened on the inside, which means that if you hold it in a standard grip, the blade is facing towards you, not your enemy. So unless you're a Silat master, it's probably not the best choice for a street fight. And speaking of Silat, it's a special combat art that you would need to learn to use the Karambit effectively. So if you're planning to take this knife into battle, you better be ready to spend years of training to master the Silat art. But wait, there's more. The Karambit in real life is much smaller than in the game, as it's meant to be less noticeable to the enemy. So it seems that in CSGO, every terrorist and counter-terrorist is already trained in Silat and ready to use this knife. In reality though, you might just end up using it to open a bag of chips. In conclusion, the Karambit is a pretty cool looking knife, but it's definitely not the easiest to use in real battle. Stick to using it in CSGO and leave the Silat training to the experts. Or, just use it to open a bag of chips. The next knife on our list is also a fan favorite, and surprisingly, it's the hunting knife. In the game, it may seem like a decent option, but in reality, the name alone tells us that it's not a combat knife. More specifically, this knife is called the M-Tech Extreme Tactical Fighter and was designed primarily for hunters. For example, the huge blade of this knife may make it difficult to use in a one-on-one fight due to its weight and thickness. It's not exactly the best option for stabbing your opponent, but it will be great for chopping branches or bones off a freshly shot animal. The back of the blade has special serrations, but they're not really useful for hurting your opponent. They would, however, be helpful for sawing wood or skinning an animal. So while the hunting knife may be an interesting choice for a game weapon, in reality, it's not something that anyone would seriously use in combat or as part of a soldier's arsenal. Stick to using it for hunting or outdoor activities. The second to last spot on our list is held by the balisong or butterfly knife. This knife definitely looks impressive in both the game and in real life. Skilled hands can make the balisong a weapon to be feared, and some criminal groups have even used it to intimidate their victims. For example, they would catch someone alone at night and dramatically flip open the knife, and before you know it, the victim has given up all their possessions without a fight. But when it comes to actual combat, the balisong is pretty terrible. First of all, the construction of the knife is rather flimsy. While a regular knife has the blade firmly secured in the handle, the balisong relies on two small pins to keep everything together. This means that after a few outings in wet conditions, those pins will rust and render the knife useless. Additionally, the lack of a guard means that it's easy for your hand to slip onto the blade during a strike. And forget about using this knife for anything other than show. You can't even use it to dig a hole, let alone any other practical field applications. In conclusion, no self-respecting military unit would ever consider using a balisong as part of their arsenal. In a combat situation, precision and reliability are crucial, and the balisong just doesn't make the cut. And last but certainly not least, we have the gut knife, which I wouldn't say is a favorite by any means. Sure, it looks interesting and cool in the game, but how it could be used in combat is beyond me. Not only is this knife 100% designed for hunting, but in the game, players somehow manage to use it for attacks. In reality, this knife is meant for skinning animals, and the hunters use the hook to lift the skin off the animal. Now, imagine trying to strike someone with this knife. It's almost guaranteed that the hook will get stuck in your opponent, making it impossible to retrieve the knife. The resourcefulness of this knife is limited to only one strike, and yes, technically it can be used for self-defense like any other sharp object, but it's definitely not meant for knife fighting. This knife would be great for breaking branches or crafting traps for rabbits. Or, for example, you could attach it to a branch and use a stone to break the branch. But in a fight with an enemy soldier, all you'll do is make them laugh.